So welcome to the Inviting Shift Show, and today we're re-recording Gemma's shifts because she had some phenomenal shifts and technology. That's basically all I can say about that. But we have it all figured out today, and we're going to record it. So today, Gemma's going to talk to us about a couple of shifts that she had, and they were both really impressive. So I wanted to make sure that we captured both of them. So first, we're going to start off with one from her childhood. But Gemma, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Gemma Rayne Fountain, and a little bit about who I am. Most importantly, I am a mom of two wonderful kids and a wife of an amazing husband. Professionally, I am an exercise physiologist. I am an integrative nutrition health coach and a fitness expert. And I've been in the industry of helping people get healthier, fitter, and have better nutrition for over 20 years now. And I love what I do. I am so alive with my career choice. And it is my mission on this planet to help women realize how amazing you already are before you lose a pound, before you buy the purse, before you get the shoes. That has nothing to do with your self-worth. And you're all amazing, fantastic, gorgeous, sexy women. And it's kind of a passion of mine to try and show women how the rest of the world sees you, because a lot of times we don't realize that the world views us as amazing, and we look in the mirror, we don't see that. And sometimes you just need a reminder to say, hey, guess what? You're pretty awesome. So that's kind of my passion in life. And the channel I use for that is health, fitness, and nutrition. And then it comes around to self-esteem and confidence. I'm also an author, and I wrote a book called The Elephant in the Room: How to Overcome Your Psychological Barriers to Weight Loss Success. And with my own weight loss battles and 20 years in the industry, people often try to diet and exercise and then wonder why it doesn't work. But if you have a psychological barrier, if you have something going on in your head, self-esteem issues or confidence issues, any kind of mental block, you're not going to get those results you want by dieting and exercising alone until you take a look at that elephant in the room, which is the real issue going on. So my book kind of looks at that in a very relaxed, very open, very candid way to say, hey, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You've just got a little hiccup. Let's fix it. So that's a little bit about me.
That's perfect. And I love how you say that, that women can find, what's already beautiful about themselves. I think so often we can tear ourselves down and we don't look at and celebrate all the really wonderful things about ourselves. I know that the other day on our summit, one woman and I were talking about how we had confidence issues when we were young, and even now, we still don't like to be in front of camera. And the third person who was on was like, oh my God, you guys are so beautiful. And, but we don't see any of those things. We only saw the things that are like, oh, well, that's not perfect. And that's not perfect. So it's amazing. Yeah. We already have so many wonderful things, and we just need to focus on those things. Yeah.
Well, it's also cultural. Culturally, it's, for example, there was a great little video online. It was years ago. And it was a street corner in New York City, and these two girls met on the corner. And one girl's like, oh my God, I'm so fat. Oh my God, I can't stand my hair. And the next girl's like, oh my God, my butt. And another girl walks up and she's like, oh my God, I just rolled out of bed. I feel awful today. I look like crap. And then all these girls kept meeting on the corner and just complaining about how they look, their hair, their job, their money. They just were complaining. And then the final girl walked up and everyone's like, how are you? And she's like, I'm great. My life is wonderful. I'm really happy. I have no complaints. And all the other girls were just like crickets, just staring at her like, who's this weird person who I have nothing to talk about with? Culturally, we are programmed to commiserate. We complain. We talk about how bad things are. We whine. We say all the negative. And when you talk about good stuff, people don't know how to communicate with you anymore. Well, I stopped commiserating years ago. Now, consequently, I don't have a large circle of friends, but I refuse to complain and whine. I am going to look at the positive. And it's my way of trying to change the world every single day by being that example. And if we all try to be that example and start talking about all the things that are right, we can change the world. But if we sink and commiserate and complain and whine, we're being part of the problem, not part of the solution. So as a woman, if you're meeting with your girlfriends and you say, oh my God, I'm having a great day today, I looked in the mirror and my butt is awesome. No one knows how to connect with that because we haven't been taught how to connect with that. So it's a
But it's
process.
exciting. Yeah, and it's exciting too. Like I know I've been in those groups of women where everything's miserable, and even if I don't say anything, when that other woman comes along and goes, "Oh my God, I'm freaking rocking it today." It's like it's a lift of energy too, which I think can be
Yes.
a little frightening for some people because I think sometimes we don't know the difference between excitement and fear. Um, and so I think, it really does bring up the energy of the room. I love it when people come in and tell me how awesome they are because it's like, yeah, something to celebrate. Let's do
Right?
it. Yeah. But it does take some getting used to because we are a society who likes to look at the lack rather than the excess. So.
Well, we'll keep changing the world,
Yeah,
conversation
that's
by
right.
conversation, right?
That's right. That's right. And instead of sitting around complaining, we're sitting here having great stories about shift and about
Yep.
growth and transformation. And that's what this is all about. So let's go right into your first story of shift because I really love it. I think it's the third time I'm hearing it and I just love
Thank you.
it.
Thank you. I'm glad you love it because after hearing it 3 times, I hope you heard it. Otherwise, it would be painful for you.
No.
So a little bit of background is I'm an immigrant. I was not born in the United States. I was born in the United Kingdom, and my parents moved here when I was 9, about to turn 10. So I'm an only child. My parents came to America. They started businesses, and in the United Kingdom, they were big fish in a little pond. They were very successful. In the United States, it was very different for them. They wanted to immigrate. They wanted to be in a much, better climate, better weather, more sunshine. But they couldn't quite figure out the U.S. business system. They went to an area that wasn't a place for them to thrive with their particular business. And what was already a strained marriage became an even more strained marriage when they got to the U.S. And while they were dealing with their own issues, I kind of got lost by the wayside. I was given way too much freedom. Now, to them, it was freedom. To me, it was neglect. And there wasn't any money to, put me in gymnastics or dance or any kind of event. They worked so much, they couldn't have taken me to any of those, events that keep a kid out of trouble. So here I was, an intelligent young person. Now we're getting into my early teenage years, and I had nothing but free time and I was bored. So what do intelligent bored kids do? They get in trouble.
Yeah.
And I started experimenting with drugs at a very young age. And I think I was probably about 14. I started drinking, I started doing drugs, and it just kept escalating. And my friends were doing drugs. That was my circle. That was my life. I started high school and I was the kid who was hanging out with all the bad kids. My grades dropped significantly. First semester of high school, I was in D's and F's, which I didn't really even care at that point. It's like, whatever. And I had a friend who I used to always hang out with, and she did not have a car. I did have a car, and I would pick her up and take her to school and then take her home after school. And after school, I'd go hang out in her house, and then we always hung out there because in her parents' closet in their bedroom, you could always find about 3 garbage bags of marijuana in their closet. So me and her, all dripping wet of 90 pounds at that age, we would take some pot and go smoke it, and they would never, ever miss it because they had so much. They wouldn't miss if a little bit of pot was gone. So I was there all the time mooching off her free pot.
Sure.
And we just hang out and get high in her bedroom. Now, she always had to race home after school because she had to be there when her little brothers got off the school bus. And she had 3 little brothers, and they were younger by a lot. I think she was a little bit older than me, so she would have been 10th grade, sophomore, and actually, I've got to be older because I was driving then. So I'm 16 by that point, driving. So she was probably 17. And she'd been held back in school, all this kind of stuff. So she got parents who were smoking weed. She's held back in school. She had 3 younger brothers. They were significantly younger than her. And I remember, you know, after a smoking pot, you get the munchies, you're
Mm.
hungry. And we'd say, I want to eat. And she'd say, you know, Gemma, you can't eat here. And I wondered why. She'd say, you know, no, you just can't eat here. Whatever, no big deal. I'd leave. I'd go get something to eat. And then one day I stayed at her house a little longer. And she said she had to feed her brother some dinner. And I was like, oh, great, good. I'm hungry too. And she said, Gemma, you cannot eat here. I was like, wait, just let me have some dinner. And she's like, there's not enough for you. And I thought that was very strange. So I went with her into the kitchen to help her make dinner for her 3 younger brothers. And she went to the cupboard. She opened the cupboard in the kitchen, and there was nothing in there except 1 can of Dinty Moore beef stew.
Mm.
And she had to take that 1 can out. She watered it down double what you're supposed to add to it in order to make enough volume to feed her 3 brothers, and there wasn't enough left for her.
Mm.
And this is where my shift happened. I was 16 years old. My parents, you know, they had their own issues and were dealing with their own stuff. And I kind of was off doing whatever I wanted with no consequences. No one noticed if I was high. And I'm hanging out with this girl thinking she's so cool and so awesome because her parents have all this pot and we can take it and never get caught. And I thought this was the coolest thing ever. And that day I realized, I was like, this family, the parents, I hardly ever see them. They're hardly ever home. They can afford to have 3 garbage bags full of marijuana in their closet, but they can't afford to put groceries in their cupboards to feed their 4 children.
Mm.
And it was at that moment I realized I don't ever want to be like that. I don't ever want to have my priorities so jacked up that I'm putting my recreational habits above the health and welfare of my children. And I remember leaving that day and just kind of being stupefied. Just how can that be? How can they do that, put that in their closet, but not put anything in the cupboards in the kitchen? And all of it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. It just came falling down on me that if I keep doing what I'm doing, I could end up like that. And right then and there, I changed. I said, I'm not going to be that. I'm more than that. I can do better than that. It's time to get some things together. And that right then and there, it didn't happen overnight, you know, but I stopped doing, I stopped doing the drugs, and I relapsed a couple of times, but I pretty much, by myself just decided I was done. And of course, when you're 16 years old, you can do it once, you quit for 2 weeks, you do it once, you wait another few weeks, you do it once. And then finally I was done completely. At 16 years old, none of my friends wanted to hang out with me anymore because, we don't want to hang out with Gemma. We can't smoke with her anymore. So what kind of friends were they really? If pot was more important to them than me as a person. That was another smack in the face. Like, whoa, did I make the right decision? But the good kids still thought I was a bad kid. So the bad kids didn't hang out with me because I was good. The good kids didn't hang out with me because they thought I was bad. And so at the age of 16, I became that kid at school who sat in the hallway during lunch and did her homework or read a book. Now, this got me from D's and F's back up to A's and B's. And everything switched. And I mean, I never relapsed after that. Once I'd finally quit, that was it. I was done. It took a little bit of time to make new friends and meet friends who were doing something. And I just got really involved in school. I got really involved in the school clubs because I could do those. I was already at school. I didn't have to pay to be in them. I could stay out of trouble. And I started volunteering at local organizations, and I got a job. And I mean, it was a complete 180. And it was just that one day I realized that this couple valued their high more than they valued their children's nutrition. And right then and there, a massive shift just hit me upside the head. And I was like, this isn't going to be me. And I got to make some changes. Otherwise, that might be me.
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, so smart to realize that at 16 because it's easy to see that at 16 and just ignore it because you're like, ah, well, I don't have kids. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I don't need to worry about that yet. I'm still having a good time or whatever. I don't need to do all that. I mean, and a lot of us will do that into our 20s, right? I
Yeah.
mean, until we do start getting a wake-up call, hopefully, if it comes. So how lucky were you to have that realization? I mean, obviously not the best of circumstances, but
I
sometimes other people's circumstances like that can really shift how we're seeing things. And just the fact that you could see it from what was going on, like, wow, this is not right. I mean, luckily, because they say weed is like a gateway drug. So luckily you hadn't gone too far off and did some really crazy stuff. But
I was
um,
blessed. I was truly
yeah.
blessed. First of all, what it was like 1993. Oh, I'm aging myself.
I'm there with you.
So it was like 1993. Um, I if I had had access to worse, I probably would have done worse. I wasn't just smoking pot.
Mm,
I was doing acid. We were smoking pot laced with coke. I mean, just honest. I mean, I don't.
yeah.
I'm an open book here.
Yeah.
Luckily, we weren't getting a hold of a ton of coke. We weren't getting a hold of the things they get a hold of today, like
I like
meth
math. Oh
and
my goodness.
heroin
Yeah.
and crack, and then all these chemically pot. Acid was chemically made, but it was early days before the internet, so not you didn't have every idiot teenager in their basement trying to make this stuff off a recipe online and messing with chemicals that are severely dangerous. These days, you've got people making all sorts of concoctions in their garage that is causing severe brain damage instantly. I was blessed back then. That wasn't an option.
Right.
The kids today are getting hold of things that you use it once and you're done. You're done.
Mm-hmm.
And the chances of that are significantly increased. I mean, we
Yeah.
did stupid stuff. I mean, we'd smoke pot and do mushrooms. Supernatural, you pick them from the yard. You know what I mean? These days, the kids are getting a hold of crazy stuff. But I
Right.
consider myself very, very, very blessed to
Mm-hmm.
be able to have seen that. And you're right, at a really young age, is not typical.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've always felt guided. I've always felt, that I wasn't alone, even though my parents were working all the time. I lost all my friends. I've never felt like I've ever been completely alone. I'm a very intuitive person, a very spiritual person. I've always felt like I've had spiritual guides with me all the time. And I pay attention to that. And I have since I was a very, very young girl. So I think that helped. It was hearing those voices, the wisdom of something that was there looking over me to help me see it for what it was. I think
That's awesome.
a lot of us have that. A lot of
Mhm.
us ignore it because we're scared of it.
Or we were taught not to listen to it. I think we
Yes.
really do a disservice to our kids when they have feelings and we don't listen to them. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you have to bend to your child's will, but, talk out those feelings and why are you feeling that way, and
Mm.
I think because so often, kids, and this could be, just from my childhood and older, but we're told, just do what I'm telling you to do. And, I don't really want to hear your back lip or whatever that is, that back talk. I just want you to do it, and I think by doing that, sometimes we are taking their ability to make choices for themselves and really hear that intuition saying that this is the right thing or that is the right thing.
Yeah.
And then they have to unlearn all those things. And I mean, it can't be perfect, but it's just something to consider is that we're told what's right or wrong. And then when our gut feeling is against that, it becomes very difficult to understand what's real for us
Yeah.
and what isn't. And I know that you've had a lot of shifts over, discovering your own truth versus, what you experienced. And that'll go into your other shift. But just a little bit more about this one is that I think it's really important too for young kids to hear it because those are the ages that you make those changes. Who am I going to be? And it's not that you can't change it later. It's just the longer that you go with one of those habits or the longer you stay on the wrong track, it sure is
Yeah.
harder to get back. Like you said, you were really blessed that back then they didn't have all the craziness that they have today.
Yep.
I know I've seen kids, you know, breaking up pills and putting them up their nose. And it's like, do you even know what that is? And they're like, oh, we don't know what this is. And it's like, what do you mean you don't know what that is? Like,
Yeah.
it could be anything, you know, you have no idea. But yet they do that. And it's true. A lot of times it is because of boredom, you know, like they just,
Yep.
they aren't instructed or given something more creative or more constructive to do.
Oh, and I was really creative when it came to being bad. I was so creative. I mean, I was the leader. I was the leader of the pack. I got all the other kids in trouble. I got all them doing all the bad. I had a troop of people who were good until I got a hold of them. I was the leader of the bad pack. It was ridiculous. I was so bad. And I wasn't a bad person. I was just really freaking bored. So like, here's something like funny, not funny. Okay. I needed money to go eat at Subway after school or to go see a movie on the weekend. Like I said, my parents were running the business as immigrants. Money was tight. And so I wanted to make money. I got $5 a week for school lunch money. That's what I got. That was my money for school lunch. And no, sorry, $10 a week because it was $2 a day for lunch. So I got $10 a week. So I went to the store. I bought a bottle of liquid vitamin E capsules. Sorry, vitamin E. All right, you know, it's like those squishy capsules.
Yeah, the little gel caps. Mm-hmm.
If you break them open, you can put the vitamin E on a scar or a cut, and it helps eliminate the scarring. Well, I would buy those. I would go to school. I told all the kids it was liquid acid. And I would buy the bottle of like 48 capsules for $5, and I'd sell each capsule for $5 itself. These kids were buying that stuff off me, whatever, taking it, coming back and telling me what a great trip they
experience they had.
They were seeing all sorts of stuff.
And you were like the Robin Hood, taking all their drug money and giving them vitamins.
I know. What's funny is I sell vitamins now to this day. I just do it in a more legal way.
You don't push them off as acid now.
Hey, maybe I'd get more people to take their vitamins if I did.
It's true. It's true. You might. But yeah, so
that's what I did. I was so creative and so bad.
But what were they gonna do? Go to the police and be like, "Oh, she ripped me off. I went to buy drugs and I only got vitamin E."
They were stupid teenagers. They were stupid preteens. They had no clue. They had no. Whatever. So yeah. As called,
so you were the leader of the pack. You were the troublemaker.
So bad. I was so bad, but in a good way. I was bad.
Yeah.
I never hurt anybody. I never, I mean, besides myself, I was hurting myself by doing all that stuff, But I truly was blessed because I got it out of my system young, and the friends who came with me, we got it out of our system very young. We were done. We moved on, and we've all done amazing things with our lives. Now, the friends who didn't get it over with young, who waited till the end of high school, early college to experiment, they didn't get over it. They kept going. They became, all of a sudden they had addictions. All of a sudden they'd failed out of college, or they messed up their high school GPA so they couldn't get their baseball scholarship to go play. Like they older they were, the more damage they did for their long-term life. Mm-hmm. And so again, not that I'm advocating 14-year-olds to go out and get it out of their system or anything. Don't do that. Don't do that. Is that again, I was just truly, truly blessed that I didn't do any long-term damage. I have another friend who I went to middle school with. He started messing around with drugs late in middle school, and he kept going through high school, just recreationally messing around with the drugs, okay? With whatever, anything. One day he took something, I don't know what was in it. He's never been the same since. He's my age, we were the same age. A bunch of us from school, we try and keep tabs on him and keep track on him, but he just roams the streets of our city. He can't have a real conversation. He still has the mentality of a middle schooler, but he can't hold a job. He can't have a home. He can't have a detail, like a deep conversation, but he has memory of middle school. So a bunch of us from middle school try and keep track of him, try and, oh, I saw him by this mall, and a couple of us will try and drive around and say, hey, how you doing, buddy? And he'll remember us because that's apparently the time frame he has his memory from. But he just took one drug, one street drug, one time, recreationally, and he's done. That's it. He is just a walking space cadet. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot to gamble with. You know, I wish people talk to kids about this more openly. Here's something that is important, okay? Teenage boys need to know this, okay? I'm married now. I'm happily married. I'm happily married now, but in my younger days, I dated quite a bit. And again, I'm giving TMI, but I think this is very, very important for young men to know. When young men use and abuse drugs and alcohol, starting late 20s, early 30s, they can no longer get a hard-on.
That is important to know for them. Yeah.
They have severe issues getting a boner, okay? I know it's TMI for some people, but if every teenage boy in the world knew that if you abuse drugs and you abuse alcohol and you do this for, at all, you might not be able to have sex after the age of 30 without taking medication.
You're sacrificing the rest of your sexual health. Yeah.
If a teenage boy knew, oh God, if I do that, I might never get a boner again. I think that would be enough to motivate a kid to,
and you don't know, right? I mean, your friend may not have known exactly what was in whatever he was taking. That's the thing. Like, even we talk about these more natural things like weed and mushrooms, and they are natural, but today they're actually taking weed and they're soaking it in other things. Yes. They're adding other stuff to it. I had a family member that went to the hospital because of something called wet, which is weed soaked in formaldehyde. I don't know why someone would want to smoke this, but I mean, I can't answer for all that, but all I know is that it's very dangerous. It sends people to the hospital and they don't always come back out, not alive anyway. So it's a very frightening thing. And just like you said, even if you live with it, I mean, look what you might have to live with. I mean, even beyond your sexual health, like not being able to have a full adult conversation again in your life, only remembering middle school and not being able to remember what happened 20 minutes ago. I mean, these are some serious side effects. I know in college, we had always heard about drinking and driving. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. The most effective conversation I ever had about it was this kid had to come into our college class and talk about it because he killed people while he was drinking and driving. And this child wished he was dead, basically, because every day he has to relive that for the rest of his life. He's got some mental issues now that he cannot have those deep conversations either. He was telling his story, and it was probably the 300th time he's told his story because that's part of his punishment. And he still had to read it. Like, he still had to read his story because he could not remember it all. And it was his story. So, I mean, when I saw that, he'd given this talk so many times and he still has to read it, that really affected me. I was like, wow, what if I don't die? You know what I mean? It's not even like, what if I die from this overdose or what if I die from drinking and driving? It's what if you don't? And then you're also going to feel obligated to your family and friends that need to take care of you for the rest of your life. I mean, that's a lot to think about. And it's cool to think that, oh, well, my friends just did it. But everybody's body reacts differently to things. And we don't always know what's in it. So I love this conversation because it's a really good one. And like you said, it really needs to be spoken more.
There's a lot of incidents in young adults and teens who are diagnosed with mental illness, but they don't have a mental illness. They took a street drug that caused all the symptoms of bipolar disorder. I have friends and relatives who had the same thing, and they never disclosed the real information to their doctor, saying, oh yeah, well, I've been using street drugs. Right. And then they all of a sudden, there's an entire slew of people in my city who are diagnosed with the same mental illness out of the blue, who all happen to use street drugs. I mean, Doesn't take a rocket science to figure that one
Right.
out. But then they're giving medications. They, can't have a job for a while. They have to go to therapy. They have problems at school. And sometimes it's permanent, sometimes it's not. And then they're told they have a mental illness. No, your dumbass was using a street drug. You have no idea what's in it.
Right, right.
Would you go and drink Windex for a high? Would you go and snort your toilet cleaner for a high? Well, some people would, but I mean,
yeah, some people would. But I
a lot
mean,
of
right.
people
But if you're
wouldn't.
getting to that point, normally you're aware of it. I
Mhm.
mean, I think people who are that addicted are aware that they're that addicted. They just don't see another way, is what it comes down to. And there is another way. It's just not easy.
I don't think people realize that the street drugs are just like that. You might
Hmm.
as well go drink Windex. You might as
Hmm.
well go, pour bleach on yourself,
Yep.
because you're doing the same toxic damage in a different level by ingesting it in smaller quantities. It's still just as toxic.
Sure. Your kidney and your liver still need to do all the work as if it was, you're eating poison.
But back to boners.
Yeah.
Is that, I dated someone who had that issue. And, many moons ago, he had abused drugs in his younger life, and he could not perform in that area. And then now I'm talking to clients, I'm talking to female clients, I'm talking to friends who are now saying that they're having those same kind of problems with their husband. And my first question is, did your husband abuse drugs and alcohol when he was younger? And they're like, yeah, he did. So it keeps popping up in my universe. It keeps coming up. No pun intended.
But it's true, yeah. I mean, and even though I know some people who have raised their blood pressure with drugs, so then they're taking blood pressure drugs on top of it. And everybody, if you don't know, but most people know that blood pressure drugs will do the same thing. You can't get that guy up there if you can't pump your blood hard enough.
I think this needs to be an anti-drug campaign. There needs to be an anti-drug commercial out there to teach. So these teenage boys are like, oh crap, like what you're saying, I can't get a boner again. Like I would think that would be cause to make some teenage boys stop.
I'm gonna tell my son.
I'm
gonna tell my son. I didn't even think of that before, but I'll definitely have the conversation with him when he comes home. He loves all the conversations I make.
Oh, tell him I said you're welcome.
I'm sure he will love that. But overall, what an awesome shift to realize that at so young. I mean, and I'm sure it still goes on today, that there's plenty of people out there who have the money for, what they feel they need, but don't have the things for their family. And I wonder if we could go back and ask that girl's parents, like, where are you? Like, what's up here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wonder what they would have to say. I would guess that they had some type of psychological or even physical addiction, that they felt that they needed to have that storage. I mean, that's a lot of weed. I know a lot of people who do smoke a lot of weed, and 3 garbage bags. Wow. And if you have 3 garbage bags of weed, why aren't you buying food? I mean, that is just so shocking. And as a young girl, that must have been even more shocking, because you're like, parents are there to protect and provide for,
Yeah. My parents were having their own issues. They weren't the cleavers, they weren't the cleavers from, Leave It to Beaver.
Right.
But when we didn't have food in our cupboard, it's because we didn't have money for anything.
Right.
They weren't carrying around
hoarding something,
$1,000 purses or wearing brand new shoes. They were just making ends meet. They were doing the best they can. Mm-hmm. To know, as a kid, to see my parents, like, how to know that, like, oh, you can do that, but you can't take care of me. Like, those poor kids. Mm-hmm. Like, to realize that priority was not with them, and it was with something else, some other substance. That's got to be heartbreaking for a child to find out.
I mean, and you talk about neglect, that right there is like the epitome of that, if you ask me. So, well, perfect. How about, did you want to end this one? And here, let me pause the recording. Let's end this.